Frieren Beyond Journey's End.
This is another one of those media literacy take, isn't it?
This is a fantasy adventure show about a really old elf girl that started airing last year to massive amounts of fanfare, and immediately became one of the most highly regarded anime of recent memory. And having watched it while it was airing, it kinda got stuck in my brain, for almost definitely the wrong reason.
God fucking damn it.
You see, on the surface, it's this very simple adventure story with a chill atmosphere that contemplates life and the importance of cherishing your time with other people. It has a very good first 3 episodes, which establish this deep emotional core to the show. It has some very simple and strong themes that nearly everything feeds into, and our main characters and their journey feels like it's heading towards a satisfying, if bittersweet, conclusion. And yet, on the other hand, I couldn't help but feel like it's basically just a shonen action battle story with a fantasy twist.
Yeah, it's called anime.
Our hero is the most powerful person in the world, who spends a significant portion of the show fighting bad guys and proving how badass and cool she is, instead of going on that chill Iyashikei adventure. With the first season even spending what feels like half its runtime on her just going through an elaborate Naruto-esque exam arc. To make it clear, I have problems with the show. I had them while it was airing, but I couldn't quite figure out where they were coming from, because I didn't want to dislike it. After all, it's highly praised and universally beloved and the #1 anime on my anime list by such an absurd amount that it might stay there forever. Its premise and story is right up my alley. I don't even dislike Naruto's exam arc, and I love powerful One Punch Man type characters and fantasy action. So when I was watching it and it wasn't working for me, I feel like maybe I just wasn't getting it. Maybe there's something I was missing. So I left it alone, and I stopped thinking about it. Up until about 9 months later, when I made a tweet about how the demons in the show are kinda weird, and people sent me death threats.
Gee, I wonder why.
So now I get to use the power of my YouTube channel to prove my point.
What's up, fellow chuckle nuts of this amazing website? So, here I was browsing YouTube looking for daily goy slob. This video showed up in my recommended, and I just had to click on it. I mean, look at that thumbnail and title. It's gotta be juicy. So of course, I did what any sensible person would do. Watch the video, start to finish, with no interruptions.
Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Demons are shown to be pure evil. They created an army that nearly took over the world after all. They destroyed the villages of seemingly half the characters we meet, and wiped out nearly 1/3 of humanity. They're the main antagonists of this story. They're fantasy villains undeserving of any sympathy, who we're told should be killed without mercy.
I can just tell where this is going.
Or well, we're told that.
Here we go.
Demons in Frieren are very strange creatures though, right off the bat. Because there is no like evil god or dark magic that really created them like in most fantasy settings. They seemingly don't have any connection to divinity at all. They're just a species of creature, same as everything else. And it's even revealed that they're a product of evolution. So the name demon is really the only connection they have to like biblical demons. They are monsters though, a vague classification in the story that basically just serves as a catch-all for anything you're not supposed to feel bad about killing. Dragons, mimics, big fucking wolf things, they're all monsters, which in the world of Frieren means they're evil, and they dissolve into mana upon death. It's this very video gamey way of basically telling the audience don't worry about it, and allows the author to paint the world in a clear black and white, as these monsters serve as the fodder enemies we fight week after week. However, even from their introduction, demons are shown to be very different from every other monster we encounter in the story. Most importantly, by being much more intelligent. Dragons are said to be maybe the second most intelligent of the monsters, but they don't really do much to act like it, and things like mimics and beasts are just completely mindless. It is only in demons that we see actual human intelligence, and quite a lot of it. And when we first see demons in the story, you might be surprised to see that they can express emotions and empathy and kindness.
It's called a facade, you fucking retard.
They can speak with humans, and quite eloquently, in fact. They seem to be pretty dang human themselves. You know, if you talk to any demon on the street, you would most definitely be fooled into thinking they're a race of sentient being, not a monster. And many people are fooled, because it's a trick. The way demons are explained to work in Frieren is a lot like mimics. This creature that I mentioned they evolved from is apparently something that could replicate human voices and cry for help, getting people to lower their guard to go after it, only to kill them. But demons evolved so much from that creature that they are now able to fully replicate humans. They look like humans, aside from the horns in their head, they can act like humans, even expressing complex emotions, and they can speak like humans and understand our language. But all in service of being able to kill us. All as part of a deception to lower our guard, as we're repeatedly told that demons are actually nothing more than wild beasts. Savage monsters who will do anything to satiate their desire to kill. This description of demons as wild beasts is actually one that not only Frieren the character gives, but the demons agree with. I mean, in their introduction, one of them looks into the camera and says, yes, we are wild beasts, we just want to kill humans. Frieren is right about us. And their actions largely align with this, as in pretty much every subsequent encounter we have with them, they are lying or killing humans, usually resulting in Frieren stepping in to live up to her nickname. So the story makes it incredibly clear very early on and tells us over and over again that demons are evil. Monsters that kill and eat people without remorse. Any bit of emotion or empathy they might show is just a part of their deception. So if you see a demon on the street, you should kill them, because they're definitely going to kill you. Frieren actually wants to go so far as to eradicate them entirely. But the problem with this is that while the story is telling us they are mindless, immoral killing machines that warrant the protagonist wishing for their destruction, it often shows us something very different.
No, it fucking doesn't. It's demonstrating the demon's capabilities of deception and trickery, you bumbling buffoon.
And I'll just go over a few examples. The introduction to demons in the story begins with a group that is trying to make peace with the residents of a town that Frieren is visiting. Frieren actually sees them be welcomed into the town and moves to attack them before getting arrested, which is where we get the scene of her calling them wild beasts. And our introduction to the demon's trickery, which proves Frieren right, is when during the peace talks one of the demons is threatened by someone over the death of their son, to which the demon responds by saying they too lost a father, which spares their life. Yet later, when it's just two demons alone together, one of them asks what a father even is, and they don't know. This is very clearly meant to be a reveal for the audience, an almost comically straightforward one, because again, immediately after this, the demon sits down and tells the audience that they only speak human language to hunt and kill. But at the same time, with that knowledge, this is a scene that completely baffles me, because why would the other demon even bother to ask this question? One, this means that demons seemingly don't have their own language and just use human speech to talk to each other, even when humans aren't around, which directly contradicts them telling us there's only one reason they speak like humans. Two, if language is just a tool used to deceive, and they already picked up what a father was based on context clues, well enough to be able to use it in a conversation, why would they care what it means? The word has already served its purpose. They've already figured out how to use it effectively. To inquire about it further means they have a willingness to understand human language beyond just deception and out of genuine curiosity, which also directly contradicts what the demon tells us.
Has it ever occurred to you that the demon asking the question may very well be an imp? And last time I checked, imps aren't known for their IQ, much less having the same amount of experience the demon it's asking the question to. And need I remind you that despite them speaking human tongue, everyone is speaking in Japanese. I wonder why.
In that same chapter, actually, the big flashback we're given to drive the nail in the coffin that demons are evil begins with a kid demon who killed a child. The hero's party wants to spare the demon, despite Frieren saying to kill it, because the demon begs for its mother. But despite her wishes, they let it live, and after enough time passes that the town takes the demon in, it kills the mayor and offers his child as a replacement, which is a terrible offer, so they get obliterated. Once again, begging for their mother before dying. Frieren asks why it says this when demons don't understand the concept of families, and it replies, because it stops you from killing me. And again, this is a reveal for the audience. It's just laying it on thick that demons lie and kill, and that's it. But importantly, it shows they lie out of self-preservation. In fact, that's the most common way we see them deceiving people, begging for their life, which is also strange because we're explicitly told they're being deceptive by doing this, yet they are genuinely begging for their life. They genuinely don't want to die and are acting afraid of dying in order to not die. But if that's not enough, demons show actual genuine emotion all the goddamn time. They are often described as prideful and arrogant. They feel genuine excitement and anger and shock and fear in ways that cannot be explained by them just imitating humans to get an advantage, as it is so often not beneficial in any way. With demons calling Frieren a bitch or getting mad at her when she kills them, or expressing some emotion when humans aren't even present, sometimes even in their inner monologue. Going even one step further, one of the first big fights in chapter 20, the conclusion to the demons pretending to make peace with the town, ends with one of the demons getting cut in half by Stark, and the other demon crying out their name, which gives Frieren enough of an opening to kill them. The way the anime frames it makes it seem like they might just be calling for their ally to help them, but they do cry out after the other demon is dead, while looking in their direction, after it's already been established they can sense when another demon dies. So this feels almost intentionally written like the demon is crying out because their ally died. And it's made pretty clear the crying out is what drops their guard and gets them killed, which looks to me like a pretty clear-cut expression of empathy.
Holy shitballs. Is this guy serious? Is he actually running defense and playing devil's advocate for literally demons? Guys, I think we have a problem here. This guy's insane. He needs to be locked up.
Now, you can maybe argue that the demons have just gotten so good at mimicking humans that they do so involuntarily, but if this is involuntary, often completely detrimental, and ingrained within the demons so deeply they even do it when nobody else is around and cannot stop doing it to save their life, then there is functionally no difference between the mimicked emotion and the real thing.
Well, at least now we know where he stands about transgenderism.
Though perhaps the strongest contradiction in the demon's nature is that they do actually have some sense of morality. The one thing you would think they obviously don't, because we're also told that to demons, one's mana level is a source of pride, and almost all demon hierarchies are simply built on who has the most mana. So a technique that Frieren has mastered to be effective at killing demons is to suppress her mana at all times, to appear to have a low amount, to trick a demon into fighting her so she can kill them. It's something she's even taught Frieren since pretty much the beginning. This is already interesting because it directly mirrors how demons trick humans with words to kill them, and it comes across as Frieren playing by their rules to get an advantage, literally using that arrogance the demons are described as having against them. But the more interesting part is that when that demon from earlier, the one who cried out at their ally dying, learns that Frieren was concealing her mana, they call her a coward. They are visibly disgusted by it, because again, demons are proud of their mana and think concealing it is a lowly thing to do. So the demon's morality might not align with ours. They're still totally okay with killing after all, but they must have some sense of morality to believe concealing mana to trick them is wrong. There is no reason they would react this way if they didn't. A truly immoral being would not think there is such a thing as an action that is wrong. And there isn't even an explanation of this being part of their mimicry because it's something only demons care about.
Please tell me he isn't saying demons have morals because they got pissed after Frieren beat them at their own game.
So right now, I'd like to take a tangent to discuss a different story that isn't Frieren, but it's one that Frieren very obviously takes a lot of inspiration from, because it's the story most fantasy series take inspiration from, because it's the Lord of the Rings. J.R.R. Tolkien's fantasy book series is fairly famous for having pretty definitive morality, characters that are depicted as unambiguously good or evil, on the side of light or dark. And with this, it portrays some races as entirely on one side, the most common of which being orcs. They are human-like creatures who are bred for war by various dark armies, including Sauron's. They are pure evil, existing only to kill and destroy and oppose the forces of good. Their purpose in the story, much like the demons in Frieren, is solely to be an antagonist to our heroes that they can kill lots of without remorse. However, it's important to note that the evilness of the creatures in Middle-earth, if you really get into it, all come from someone called Morgoth, who is the fantasy equivalent of Satan. And I mean that literally. J.R.R. Tolkien was a devout Catholic and modeled the Lord of the Rings heavily after his own religion. Morgoth is literally meant to be a stand-in or representation of Satan, a fallen angel who corrupts those around him, and is responsible for most of the evil in the world. As the creatures Morgoth and later Sauron control are almost all evil because of this corruption. Basically every evil, intelligent character in the novels, from Saruman to Grima Wormtongue, were not evil to begin with. They've simply been turned evil over time. Some by choice, others through torture or pondering their orbs too long. Even the giant flaming demon Balrog that Gandalf fights is described as being a lesser angel that has simply been turned. Hell, Sauron himself was corrupted. The only creatures that are described as being totally 100% evil from birth are beings created by Morgoth, who we're told are evil because they don't have souls. This is something that also comes directly from Tolkien's Tolkien's Catholic theology, by the way, this idea that evil cannot make, only mock. Satan/Morgoth cannot create anything with a soul, because to be born with a soul means you're a blank slate, and blank slates are good by default, so only God/Eru has the power to make that. Satan/Morgoth can only corrupt those beings. To make something evil by default, they basically have to be a homunculus with no soul or sentience. So when we get to orcs, the most basic and simple and one of the oldest and most influential evil fantasy creatures, J.R.R. Tolkien encountered a problem. A moral dilemma, where in many of the stories they show up in, orcs are able to speak, they're able to make decisions, express emotions. Treebeard describes them as participating in orcish mischief. And I mean, they still kill and eat people, they still don't have any human morality, but they understand what morality is, and consider some actions to be right or wrong. So just on the basis of all that, they must be sentient. They must have a soul. And when the books treat them as unsympathetic monsters that are killed in the thousands, you can see where Tolkien had an issue.
I wonder if this guy ever watched or read Goblin Slayer, because the goblins, by definition, aren't good beings. They're vile, disgusting, evil creatures whose only purpose is to kill and satisfy their lust. The only difference is that they're too stupid to rival anyone intellectually. Kind of like this guy.
Because remember, all of the other evil creatures are corrupted and are thus given the chance to change. They have the choice to become good again, to fight this corruption. And many do. Several evil characters in the novels get redemption, and the ones who don't typically have some moment where they could repent but choose not to. And because of this, they're all shown at least some amount of mercy until they do something that proves they don't deserve it. Yet the orcs are never given this mercy, especially in the movies where they are just decapitated and bifurcated and mowed down without a second thought. They're never given the chance to change. They're never treated with any of the respect the other evil characters are. They're just are. The characters never even think of the possibility of them being redeemable.
You know what this reminds me of? The US crime statistics.
So this became something that really bothered Tolkien. He never explicitly commented on his feelings about it, but he did try very hard to find a possible solution for it, a way to justify the orcs acting and being treated like that. Something you can especially see in his responses to letters that fans wrote to him about this subject. He even went out of his way to try and come up with alternate backstories for the orcs that would fix this, but always ran into the same dilemma. In one scenario, the orcs are descended from elves who were tortured and corrupted by Morgoth, but that means they have souls and shouldn't have been killed indiscriminately. In the original scenario, the orcs are created by Morgoth as imitations of elves, but in that case, they shouldn't really be intelligent because that requires sentience and a soul. The final solution Tolkien left us with in his notes before passing away was just to essentially canonize all of these different contradictory origins, give each of them in his different stories and explanations of the world, so that the true nature of the orcs was left mysterious and you wouldn't have to think about it. Though he did tend to prefer the idea that they were corrupted. To quote Tolkien directly,
This video is long enough. You can pause to read it. I'll just skip this part.
which, all in all, is incredibly fascinating, that Tolkien, a devout Catholic who was writing monstrous villains for a fantasy novel, couldn't help but think they weren't inherently evil because of the way he wrote them. In a story with a literal evil magical force, even he felt that after inadvertently giving them intelligence and emotion, and thus sentience, they were closer to corrupted men than purely evil beasts. As Christina Fawcett writes in her analysis of Tolkien's morality,
What a shitty choice of font color, dude.
going back to Frieren, it should be obvious from everything I've set up that we encounter the same dilemma that Tolkien did. If demons are pure evil, they shouldn't really be sentient, and if the demons are sentient, they shouldn't be pure evil.
Sentience is of the mind. Morality is of the heart. Hence the whole soul thing Tolkien mentioned. You utter nincompoop.
However, demons in Frieren are shown to be clearly sentient. They're easily more intelligent and inquisitive than even the orcs are.
Can somebody please get this guy into an Ace Attorney game? Wait a minute.
Hold it!
From what we've seen of the demons in the show and what I've talked about so far, there are some serious questions raised, and the manga does directly try to answer these, and has an entire arc focused on the possibility of coexistence between humans and demons. And so now it's time to get into that. Spoiler alert, it doesn't go well. Now, the specific arc I'm talking about is the Golden City arc, or El Dorado as the most popular fan translation calls it. Leading into El Dorado, there are a couple of interesting interactions with the demons we see, most notably being another example of a demon asking a question about the meaning of something. This time while humans care about their dead, before getting dismissed again. This demon is actually a young child who is shown to be happy and energetic like a human kid, even when humans aren't around. And in an interaction that honestly surprised me, they kill a human, look to their superior with a smile on their face, and say, I did it, master, praise me, and then get cut in half. What the fuck? Why? They think the human is dead, clearly, but they're showing excitement and looking for praise from their superior? A demon, a creature described as this emotionless antisocial murder monster, is bursting at the seams with a desire for approval.
Dogs get happy when they see their owners come home.
It cares enough about this other demon that it wants them to praise them? What? Anyways, we eventually get to El Dorado, and for anyone who hasn't read it, who skipped my spoiler warning, the basic premise is that a powerful demon, Mok, one of the big boys in the Demon King's army, has turned a city to gold and has been sealed inside it by a magic barrier. Long story short, he was the advisor to a lord of a city who put a bracelet on him ensuring that if he ever harbored any malice towards anyone in that city, he would die instantly. Yet, he turned the whole place to gold anyways. Curious. Short story long, we spent several chapters exploring Mok's memories, where we learn that demons do not actually know what the concept of malice and guilt even are. Mok says he understands all the other emotions, fear, anger, sorrow. This is what helps confirm demons feel these things for real, by the way. But malice and guilt are just completely foreign to him, as they are to all demons. So Mok starts devoting his life to finding out how to feel them, because he considers himself a pacifist who just wants to coexist with humans. Yet, the way he tries to learn what emotions are is just by slaughtering villages and getting kids to kill each other in front of him. This eventually leads him to become the right-hand man of a corrupt lord, who becomes his best friend, since they both openly consider themselves evil and think they can learn from each other. And he serves this lord for many years. It takes 20 before someone even thinks to put that bracelet on him. But eventually, after feeling like he learned everything he could, Mok turns the town and his best friend to gold anyways, just to see if he feels something. He doesn't. During this, it is explained by a demon that demons do not feel malice or guilt because they've evolved to hunt and kill humans. So killing humans is in their instinct, and feeling empathy isn't. Because if they felt bad for their prey, they would go extinct. And this is coupled with the idea of convergent evolution, that demons evolve to be similar to humans but are in fact so distant as to be alien to us. Just like how an orca and a shark might look and act similar, even if one is a mammal and the other isn't. As they say, for a demon to try and understand human emotions would be be like trying to understand the inner workings of an ant. And because their primary instinct is to kill, the search for coexistence means to endanger humanity. The closer a demon gets to humans to learn more about them, the more of them they'll end up killing, because they just can't help it. Even Mocked just destroyed an entire town on a whim. So at the end of the arc, when Frieren faces off against him, she tells him that even if it were possible for demons to learn to coexist, it would take so long and leave so many people dead that it wouldn't even be worth it to pursue. Frieren couldn't let it happen. It's effectively not an option. As she tells us, the Demon King himself wanted coexistence too, and that's what led to 1/3 of humanity being wiped out in the first place. So this changes basically our entire understanding of the demons. Now the question of evil is fully shifted from any kind of magic or divinity towards essentially biological determinism, the idea that they're programmed to act this way and don't have any way of stopping it. Demons are born to hunt and kill, and it's so deeply ingrained in their alien nature that that's just how it is. They're not evil out of malice, just out of instinct. And I've seen people argue that morality shouldn't even be applied to the demons at all because of this. The idea being that a predator without empathy doesn't even know what they're doing is wrong, so they can't be evil. The specific line I've seen used being, they're like a house cat killing mice. But I just like to remind you, unlike a house cat or a tiger or a bear or whatever, demons are intelligent enough to understand how their actions affect people. And they already have an understanding of morality. That's the most important part here. They have a concept that you can do something wrong because that's how they view Frieren's trickery. They just don't understand that killing people is wrong.
This guy went through both the anime and manga of Frieren and still hasn't understand the fact that these demons don't see humans as anything more than prey. Do lions give a damn what zebras think?
They do not lack morals, they just have a hard time adopting ours. Also, just because I've seen so much of it online, evil does not have anything to do with maliciousness. The fact that they feel no malice towards the people they kill means effectively nothing. By human standards, and the standards of the story, killing innocent people is morally reprehensible. It is an evil thing to do and to be okay with doing. The emotions you did or did not feel during, be damned. And they do it even though they don't have to. The story brings up multiple times that they don't need to eat humans to survive. Frieren even all but calls this an excuse when a demon says that's why they killed someone. Oh, and by the way, the manga does drop basically every other pretense that they're wild animals during this arc. I mean, throughout the whole thing, they're emotional and empathetic towards other demons, like, the entire time. Here's a demon being sad their friends are dead and helping another demon because he reminded her of them. Here's a demon saying they use fear to control other demons. Here's a demon doing a fucking yandere smile because they just love fighting so much. Mocked, when he dies, goes and visits his best friend for no other reason than because he misses him. I'm just gonna stop considering this a point I even have to argue, because it should be obvious by now.
Yeah, it's fucking obvious that you're a total retard. Elephants mourn their dead. Emotions doesn't mean morality, dipshit.
But as you might guess, even after changing our understanding, we haven't changed or solved the dilemma at all. Shifting the demons from the classic interpretation of evil beings created or corrupted by some dark force to what are essentially sociopaths with a serial killer gene doesn't change that they're beings who we're told are wholly irredeemable because of this, even though they can think logically and understand morality and all that. We're just told that doesn't matter. They can't. Their intentions don't actually mean anything, because their nature is to be evil, and even if they try to overcome that, that will just result in them doing more evil.
Alright, you know what? Fuck this. I'm just gonna wrap this whole section up with a short story, cause ain't nobody got time for this circular yap fest. Once upon a time, there was a frog. One day, Frog was sitting by a river, when along came a scorpion. "Hello, brother Frog," said Scorpion. "I wonder if you could so kind as to give me a ride across the river on your back." Frog knew that Scorpion could not swim. "I don't think that's a good idea," said Frog. "You have a deadly sting. You might kill me." "But why would I do that?" replied Scorpion. "If I stung you, we would both die." Thought Frog. "That makes sense. All right, jump onto my back and I'll give you a ride across the river," he said. So Scorpion jumped onto Frog's back, and Frog began to swim across the river. But halfway across, Scorpion took his deadly sting and stuck it into Frog's back. And as the poison filled Frog's body, his arms began to stiffen, and they both began to sink. "Why?" the Frog cried out. "Sorry, Frog," said Scorpion. "It's my nature." And Frog and Scorpion died.
The demons are evil, that's what the story is saying, because that's the context in which I want to get into this final part.
Holy fuck, finally!
A while back, Frieren was trending on Twitter, and so I tweeted about pretty much what I've been talking about this whole time. The demons in Frieren are shown to contradict their supposedly evil nature so much that I expected the story to subvert it, and I was disappointed when it didn't. I didn't bring up anything about Tolkien's dilemma, but I did reference the biological determinism in a way that I thought got the point across. And the reaction to this
was intense. I've been the center of a couple of bad Twitter moments. I've had several viral tweets made specifically to try and dunk on me. I'm unlucky enough to have several accounts that just obsessively post about everything I do. I don't really talk about it because it doesn't bother me, but I thought it was especially funny that this reaction to criticism about an anime promoting the value of friendship had people calling me more slurs than I've ever seen. Now, unfortunately, a lot of this comes from the discourse being poison. A while back, Starship Troopers, a similar story about mankind fighting alien bugs that are said to be evil on the story surface but shown to be more complex than that, was trending on Twitter. And some very enlightened individuals decided to turn this into a political compass test, drawing a line in the sand and saying if you empathize with the bugs, you're on this side, if you want to kill them, you're on this side, which then expanded to any discussion of the morality of different races and creatures in media. And this makes sense. A lot of especially extreme ideologies already promote the eradication of groups you consider morally lesser than you outside of fiction. So if you believe in one of those ideologies, well, you'd want to agree that the characters in Frieren or Starship Troopers should do just that, regardless of the facts of the story, which is why these stories have picked up rather large followings from these crowds. But unfortunately, this has just completely bulldozed any meaningful discussion on topics like this for a lot of people, since the desire to stick to a side for political reasons overrides everything else. When my tweet reached a wider audience that included people with these ideologies, they were never going to engage with the contents of the argument. They just wanted to represent their side of the aisle and performatively attack the other side. Which is whatever. Again, I don't care about being called names. It's pretty easy to dismiss someone responding to your argument in this bad of faith. But what really got me, what actually made me kind of upset, was just the surprising amount of people responding to my tweet by essentially saying, no, what are you talking about? The demons are unquestionably evil. Here's a panel where they say so. Here's the logic justifying their evilness. This was far and away the most common opinion I saw. The vast majority of the response to my tweet, outside of the bad faith insults, being disagreements with specifically my questioning of the story's logic, like me bringing up the contradictions was the worst thing I said. And this truly made me feel insane. Like, actually insane. Because after going through the whole story, these contradictions were so obvious to me, I didn't know how someone else wouldn't pick up on them. That's why I spent so much time in this video going through them. But more than that, I didn't understand why people thought these explanations invalidated my criticism. Let me explain.
Maybe it's true what they said. You can't logic someone out of a position they didn't logic themselves into. You and your twisted understanding of all the media you brought up have resulted in you not comprehending the crystal clear facts that were presented, thus asking and arriving at bumfuck nowhere.
Here's a question. Why are the creatures in Frieren called demons? If you even glanced over the anime or manga or just gotten this far into the video, it should be pretty obvious that there's actually two answers. The first answer is the in-universe one. We aren't actually given one, I believe, but you could easily say it stemmed from some word in this universe's historical language. Maybe it means man-eater in Elvish or something. I don't know. But the second reason, the out-of-universe one, is that demons in fiction, since the Bible, have been considered the most broadly recognized holy evil creature. So you call your creatures demons to denote that they're evil. These two types of answers to a question about a fictional space can be pretty much applied to anything. I just call them in-universe and out-of-universe, but another name I like is the Watsonian and the Doylist. Because in Sherlock Holmes, written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Dr. Watson is described as having a war wound that is sometimes shown to be in his shoulder, sometimes in his leg. The Watsonian answer, the one that Watson would give, is that he must simply have two wounds. The Doylist answer, or the one Sir Arthur Conan Doyle would give, is that he forgot where the wound was while writing. So, fun fact, if you ever wanted to know where the word orc came from, Tolkien, being the language nerd that he was, actually wrote extensive Watsonian answers about the history of the word in Middle-earth, and how it's pronounced in his different languages. But he also gave a rather blunt Doylist answer. Orcs, the word is, as far as I am concerned, actually derived from Old English. Orc, meaning demon, but only because of its phonetic suitability. Now, there's a bunch more terms and study around these, but really all you need to know is that for every question that comes up in a story, there's those two explanations. And which one of these is appropriate can largely depend on the type of question. Why a character made a stupid decision might be entirely explained by them having an impulsive personality, whereas why another character was killed off might be explained by the actor moving on to another project. But the key point here is explain. In-universe or out-of-universe explanations on their own do very little to actually defend the work from criticism. An actor moving on to another project doesn't make the character's death any more satisfying or coherent in the story. A character making a stupid decision because they were emotional doesn't make the stupid decision any less stupid. Explanations can only serve to smooth out the consistency of the world, but criticism often extends far beyond that. And this is especially important to keep in mind when the criticism made is of some meta element of the text, and the response is to use the text to defend it. Because the Doylist has power over the Watsonian, but the Watsonian has little power over the Doylist. The author is in complete control of this world and can override it in any way they want. It's not real. So they may choose to make decisions that best suit the pre-existing logic of the universe, but ultimately they can make the logic of the universe anything they please at any time. And if you've ever heard of what a retcon is, you've seen a common example of the many ways an author can bend that logic to fit their will. Getting back on topic, something you have to understand is that Tolkien's dilemma wasn't one of internal consistency, that the orcs weren't 100% following the logic of his world. He had complete control over that, after all. He could just change the way the world works. Morgoth is just able to create creatures with souls who are irredeemably evil. Boom, solved. No, his dilemma stemmed from asking why he would write a universe with that logic in the first place.
It's only a dilemma to people like you because the fact of the matter is some things can and will either be pure evil or pure good, and they are completely subjective and sometimes objective. Certain things are evil or good based on who's judging it. some things are just good or evil because it goes against the laws of nature of whatever bubble it resides in.
That's why even his multiple different backstories didn't fix anything. His potential changes always clashed with his real-life religious views, his real-life morality. And so, they clashed with the themes of his story being about overcoming evil and the possibility of redemption. My criticisms of Frieren flow in the same way. I focused on the contradictions of the text as obvious points of contention, places where the story tells us one thing and shows another. That's easy. But my core issue with the demons being irredeemably evil is larger than the consistency of the story's logic, because the morality, themes, and ideals of a story exist outside of that. You can smooth out the logic of the world as much as you want, explain why the demons are the way that they are as definitively as you can, but doing so does not change or justify what a world created to be like that is promoting.
Oh my god. Is this it? Is this really what grinds this guy's gear? That the fact certain things are irredeemably evil is somehow bad or wrong because of whatever message it might suggest to the audience? Fucking kill me, dude.
What its logic is telling the audience it values, or if a story with that logic is even good in the first place. The story of Frieren is ultimately one about empathy and learning to appreciate and understand others, especially those you might consider lesser.
Especially to those you might consider lesser. Fucking what? This guy's so goddamn retarded? The only perceived lesser race or group of individuals in this series are demons, literal human blenders, and we're supposed to feel for them? Fuck off.
Most prominently shown through Frieren's greater power and lifespan than all of the other characters she grows fond of. And yet, through its own logic, the story proudly says that some beings are just wholly undeserving of empathy entirely, not for any specific actions they might take, but just on the basis of their existence.
Their existence is the anti-existence for everything else, you massive gobsmacking moron!
They are, in fact, lesser. Frieren's journey is one about seeing how others around her benefit her life and have their own complete and complex experiences that are just as valuable as her own. And yet, through its own logic, the story says that the experiences of some beings are just completely worthless, by virtue of them being born as something that can only cause harm. A story about how anyone can overcome their own limitations, even those imposed by the nature of their birth, and how they can always achieve the impossible, repeatedly shows us characters that it says will never do so, no matter how hard they try. And that really sucks. Now, and you might honestly just choose not to believe me, but despite the confrontational nature of a video like this, I don't really have any problem with people disagreeing with me about my criticisms of Frieren and the demons. I understand that I have a very controversial opinion here, and I by no means consider my position to be unassailable. But what I do have a problem with, and what honestly makes me more than a little mad, is people trying to dismiss my criticism solely by repeating the logic of the thing I'm criticizing. The values promoted by the logic of the narrative can still fundamentally be at odds with the values the narrative itself is trying to promote, even in a perfectly consistent world. Because unlike real life, a story's logic is just created by an author. It isn't absolute. And showing me a panel where the characters explain that this is how the world works does nothing to address that. So, as it stands, the way demons in Frieren are handled is very strange, and I think a lot of my issues with the show can be tied into my issue with the demons, because ultimately, I think they stem from the same place. I also think exploring this dilemma I've talked about serves a very important lesson about how to write and engage with morality, and I think a lot of people should take it as a lesson on how to engage with criticism, because in both cases, there's a lot of danger in relying on the ideas of others. Thanks for watching.
And thanks for wasting hours of my life going through your sewage of a take. Next time you want to play Moral God, don't go into people's creations and tell them that their choices are either wrong and or somehow inappropriate, you pretentious thumb. In conclusion, today marks the first time I make a video dissecting shit takes. If you have any internet funnies to send me so I can yap about it, please leave a comment because it's definitely not gonna get lost. That's all. See y'all.